Good afternoon, philosophers. My name is Dr. Trent Brown and I'm Director and Coach at PerformCycling. Today's vlog number 2, is going to focus in on functional threshold power, or FTP. FTP is a concept that was created by Dr. Andrew Coggin, an exercise physiologist. It's a relatively simple yet pragmatic concept that says that an athlete should be able to hold his or her lactate threshold or a point under it for a period of 60 minutes. Now, in many terms, or in many ways, basically what this suggests is that an athlete should be able to maintain, in physiological terms, it's important to be clear about what the term threshold actually means. When discussing FTP, the exercise intensity at which blood lactate begins to accumulate vis-a-vis the lactate threshold is a powerful predictor alongside maximal oxygen uptake of an individual's exercise capability. When lactate threshold is expressed in terms of power output, this figure provides a really sound basis through which we can design training and exercise programs for those who use power meters. Okay, the rest of the vlog will focus in on a number of different ways an athlete can measure their functional threshold power. Importantly for athletes to be aware of is that when we undertake a 60-minute power test, this is a measurement of our functional threshold power. Anything else that is shorter than 60 minutes represents an estimation of our functional threshold power. The first FTP test that I want to talk about and discuss is probably the most common. This is the 20-minute time trial. Now, this 20-minute test was designed originally by Hunter Allen and Andy Coggin and is used primarily as an estimation of functional threshold power. It's important to be aware that you take a 5% margin of error off your average power that you've developed over the 20 minutes. Their 5% takes into account the belief that for the duration of the test, because it's so short, that primarily it's an anaerobic as opposed to an aerobic performance. Another example of a functional threshold power test is one created by Joe Friel. Now, Friel uses a 30-minute time trial score with most of his athletes, and his belief across the 30 minutes is slightly different to Coggin and Hunter Allen's estimation. Friel suggests using the average or normalised power for a 30-minute time trial is adequate, as there's a difference between of what he says between 5% between a workout and racing. And when conducting an FTP test, Friel reckons that you are probably riding at 5% less than you would be if you were to undertake a race. Another FTP measurement or estimation suggested by Friel, especially focused in on road cyclists, is a 60-minute criterion. He believes that most of the athletes that he has worked with get very close to their FTP during a 60-minute criterion, especially if the criterion is hard and that there are no breakaways that get up the road. Normalised power as opposed to average power, as it takes out the quite defined peaks or spikes and troughs that might be found in a power graph after a 60-minute criterion. Another form of functional threshold power that can be a measurement of what actually goes on is that of a step test. Now, a step test is normally conducted in a lab environment, although more and more coaches these days are using the power of technology via implements such as Wahoo kickers to conduct step tests. In terms of the step test, here it's your maximal aerobic power or your peak power output that is used to then calculate your functional threshold power. Dr. Stephen Lane of HP Tech tends to use a value of 82.5% of your maximal aerobic power as a functional threshold value, whereas others in the literature tend to use values in the lower range of somewhere between 72 to 77 of your maximal aerobic power. And this tends to depend on the type of step test that is used. Another couple of ways that you might be able to actually find out your functional threshold power is to use services like Strava, which offers for its premium members the opportunity to have a look at your power curve. Okay, so what we've looked at today is we've looked at what is functional threshold power. We've also looked at a range of different tests, from the 60-minute criterion, the 30-minute time trial, the most common, the 20-minute time trial, and also services such as Strava. My suggestion is that you play around with and have a look at a range of these different tests during your periodized training program. That way you're likely to find that your functional threshold power is much more likely to be closer to your real FTP, as opposed to just doing a one-off test that tends to estimate your functional threshold power. In summary, you don't need to go to an expensive lab to find out your functional threshold power value. You can undertake this through one of the testing protocols that I've suggested prior to this point. And it's important to be aware that your true FTP value is going to be somewhere in the middle of these points using these different testing protocols. So it's important for you to consider utilizing a range of these during your training phases to measure your FTP, and that way you're most likely going to find a truer value of your FTP. Finally, don't forget to follow me on Instagram or Twitter via the handle @PerformCycling. Jump on the web, have a look at our website PerformCycling.com, or jump on our Facebook page and like it. And finally, if you really like these videos, please make sure you jump onto YouTube and subscribe, and we'll keep you up to date